For example, how many people here think that work and play kind of mix? Okay. How many people here think that work and play do not mix? About the same number, okay. And everybody else is going, yeah. It turns out that there's cultural differences in here, and there's habit, there's experience, and it varies. It varies, just as it does in this room. We're trying to figure out some particular kinds of activities now. Things like team formation and things activities that can really expose people to both work and play. Team building kinds of things. Okay, that's a work and play typical. I mean, typically when we do team building exercises, that's a mix of learning and work but it's there's usually fun in there too. So we're looking at seeing how we can support some of these kinds of things in Second Life, in Facebook. And what's the role of the instructor? I don't know. I'd like to think that we can be part of it. I think we can. I think we can play a role, a positive role out there. It's likely to be different. It's likely to be quite different than anything we may have traditionally done. And so this is part of the opportunity that we have to explore in these contexts. Student learning style support. Student learning style clearly varies, and guess what? These technologies tend to amplify different kinds of things. And part of your design and consideration of use of these virtual worlds and things like Facebook, you have to take into consideration that range of learning styles, whether it be Colb's or whoever else's. Pedagogical adaptation. This notion of space versus place. On the one hand, we can create a place out there in these virtual worlds that, amplifies a lot of that which we've traditionally done. And that can be good. That can be good. We can also create a space out there, that does things that none of us have ever done. And maybe after we do it, we wish we hadn't, But there's some combination in there of space and place, familiarity and encouragement for thinking outside the box, for exploring, that gives us an opportunity now. Gives us an opportunity to see what some of this might be, to think about it. The good thing is that you don't have to build the space. You don't have to build the place. There's lots of it already out there. So that's not a barrier, okay? That's not a barrier. And the students will help you if you need any help. And what does it do to our institution? What is a university? Where is that university? Is that university out there in a virtual world? Does it have a physical presence? What's the role for both of these? What are the kinds of things we should do? So these are all the things to think about. Okay, think mobile though. Think mobile, because regardless of whether it's a virtual world or a Facebook or whatever, everything that we're doing right now that's tied into a lot of the computer use, is going on to mobile devices. Okay, and again, these are a sustaining innovation on the part of the students. Now, whether they all have one of one sort or another. And this is a great opportunity to release us from a lot of these traditional constraints that we've had of having people, have to come to particular places. So we can go out there. Hopefully we'll have clothes on. But it's a cultural, it's a usage shift, and it's got unlimited expansion. One of the interesting characteristics of mobile devices is that you can put stuff on them, you can do things with them. You can have global positioning, you can know where you are, your friends are, you can do all kinds of things out there. And it's already in the phones sometimes it's not brought to the surface, but it's in the chipset already. A friend of mine is with Philips Software, and 3 years ago he was already selling all of the kind of stuff to do virtually all the things we've talked about to the chip makers. Okay, so it's already out there. And you're seeing it in a lot of products that are available today. David Kennedy and I've been collaborating over the last several years and working on some of these different kind of applications. Things that you can do inside the classroom, kind of the clicker things. But the more interesting things are the things you can do outside the classroom, to where you're engaging students and thinking about kind of edutainment and things like field trip support. For example, this is a little one we call photo tape. You can take a picture, you can annotate it, you can add an audio clip, and you can save it to a portfolio. Okay, there's actually an audio clip here that's done by our Dean of Student Learning, and she took some students to Norway, and they were out there really trying to understand, things like pH levels in the lakes and what might have created it, and having a genuine experiential learning kind of discussion. Now that's the good news. The good news. The bad news is that if you don't think about how to make use of this in changing the processes, that you're doing out there, you're not going to take full advantage of it. So in this case, once they got out in the field, the students would run out and they'd do things, and then they'd all come back, and then they'd analyze the data, but then they found that they didn't have some of the data, and then, So, part of what David's been working on, for example, is putting all of this on a server that can go out there in the field. That now you can do collaborative things out there where the flowers are, where the lake is, okay? So you can really do a lot of interesting things, but you have to start thinking about the processes. You have to start thinking about the activities and the way you create them. All right? So, research opportunities, the same in mobile, same in these virtual worlds. But there's some special challenges. And I think the challenges that we're faced with are, what's the right balance? There's a myriad of things we can do, but what's the right balance? And that's something that we as educators are in the position to determine. How do we recognize the change in ourselves? Do you want to have a dynamic morphing avatar that runs around in virtual space? I don't know. I kind of like my kind of plain one, but it's clearly an opportunity. What's the motivation for adaptation? What's the motivation for ourselves? What's the motivation for our students? And as I mentioned, the student learning bubble that surrounds our students wherever they go now, which part of that are we going to have? How are we going to be engaged in that space, in that bubble? Because there's a lot of competition. Then how do we assess this? We're still going to be responsible for assessing learning. You can count on that. Every government will see that as one of our primary roles and become even more concerned. When you say, my students out there running around, but they're learning. Convince me. What do we do as educational institutions? Should we be leading? Should we be following? Should we get out of the way? Let other people do it and watch what happens? Should we plan? Or in the words of Russell Aycock, you can either plan or be planned for. I kind of prefer planning. I don't like being planned for much, but what is our role as institutions? What is our role of institutions? What do we do? So lots of challenges out there.